What's going on, guys? This is part 5 of the sound system build on my Tacoma, and in this video I'm installing 3.5-inch speakers on the dash. Now this is something I didn't really see on YouTube at all, and I've only seen in the forums, and I wanted to try it, and I hope you guys stick around to the end so I could tell you guys what I think about this job. But with that being said, let's get right into it. So these speakers sound great, but I want to raise the soundstage higher. First step is to remove this A-pillar cover. In order to do that, you would need to pull this cap off, and there should be a bolt in there. So I use this plastic trim tool right here. You want to get one that's very thin at the edge. That way you can really get in between the crack and pry it out. And be very careful not to scratch up your plastic. And this is the 10mm bolt right here. After that, you would just pry it back and then slide it towards you. Using that same trim tool, you're gonna get in between here. You're gonna pry this up carefully all the way around, except towards the back. And here's the trim piece right here. So this is why you do not want to pry in the back, because these actually slide in towards the back, and then the clips would be pushed down. So this is the factory speaker right here. You're gonna use a 10mm to take these two bolts out. And to get this back bolt right here, you will need something like this to get it out. Here's the speaker right here. There's the connector. And to get the connector out, there's one tab right here on the side. You just push that in and you pull this connector out. Now this is going to be the hard part. So there is some trimming involved. I'm going to try to figure out where to trim, and I'll let you guys know where I go from there. Alrighty, so far this is what I have. This looks very, very crappy, but I'm not too worried since this will be hidden. But I went ahead and trimmed from here all around, even cut off the original tabs for the stock speakers right here, and drilled a hole here to push the bolt location back. And then trimmed all of this right here and trimmed a little right there. So I'll have a side-by-side picture of before and after. By the way, I used this Dremel right here with this kind of bit, so that way I could sand down all the plastic. A word of advice: when you're using the Dremel, get a piece of cardboard and cover your windshield. That way all the parts that fling up don't hit your windshield and possibly ruin your tint if you got any tint on. All the plastic that flies everywhere usually cools down as soon as it flings out, and you can see it's all over my dash a little bit, but you could actually just slide it around so it's not going to stick to your dash. So I drilled a hole right there so that way I could get this guy back in and just slide it over, and then I'll be able to bolt the speaker down. Now before I bolt the speaker down, I do have to do some modifications to it. The modification I'll make to the speaker is moving the hole further out this way. Now I have this fitted in. The problem I have is that this bolt is a little too far back and it's a little too tall, so I'm going to swap this out with a shallower bolt, probably one with a Phillips bit on it. All right, I got the new screw in. It's nice and low, and the speaker is now officially installed. I've already wired it. When I do the passenger side, I'll show you how I wire it. Now this part is going to get in the way of the new speaker, so to remove it, you could get a Dremel and just sand down these parts right here. That way it breaks them loose from the cover, and you could actually pry this up. You can see it move when I pull it up. So the passenger side is somewhat the same process. You would have to pop these two caps off, and there should be two 10mm bolts, and then you pry it off and pull out. There's those two bolts, and you pull it down like this. Should be able to slide it out. Now use the pry tool to pry this cover off. So some of you guys may have this little sensor here. I believe this is for your auto headlights. So in order to disconnect this connector, you push down on the tab right there, and then you pull it out. Same process as the driver's side, two 10mm bolts and the connector. Now that the stock speaker is out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and figure out where I need to trim, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I finally got this all cut out. I don't think I'm gonna use bolts for this speaker like I did for the other side. It's just way too complicated. So I'm going to use screws instead. That should hold down the speaker pretty good. Before I install the speaker, I'm going to make a connector and run some wire. So I have some speaker wire right here. The speakers come with this capacitor. It's a 270 microfarad capacitor. Basically, this acts like a high pass filter that allows higher frequencies to go through and prevents any lower frequencies from going through. So I'm gonna put this in line with the positive wire. So here it is right here. I had to do a lot of this off camera because it was very difficult to do this with the camera in front of me, but it's not bad. Now I'm gonna crimp on some speaker terminals. So the terminals crimped on now. So now this is ready to be plugged into the speaker and put into the truck. All right, now the speaker's installed. So if you guys are gonna be using screws, I suggest that you will put the speaker in first and make a marking of where each screw is gonna go, and then take the speaker out and work the screws in. It is very difficult to get this back one, but get the screws started first and then install the speaker. Now before you install the speaker grill, you have to remove the cone thing that sits in here, like I said earlier. So again, you just use the Dremel to sand these parts down. And I forgot to mention this on the other panel, but you want to sand down this tab that sticks up. It kind of looks like this on this side right here. I want to sand that down on this side since this is where the speaker's at. Don't forget to run your sensor wire through. So this is how I'm going to wire the speakers. I'm going to tie them in parallel with the door speakers. And this is not an ideal setup, but it should work for my situation because my amp is able to handle the combined wattages of both speakers at the 2 ohm load, and wiring these in parallel will give me a 2 ohm load since both speakers are 4 ohm. After I got those wires soldered together, I went ahead and put all the plastics back on the truck, and now it should be complete. We're going to do a sound test. With the 3.5s in the dash, it sounds so much better having the soundstage a lot higher rather than down below where the doors are at. Even though it sounds great, was it worth it? Probably not. And I have 2 reasons why it's not worth it. One reason is that there's too much bass up there. Now, bass isn't the issue, but it's the fact that there's too much bass where the dash starts making rattling noises, and I have no control of what happens behind the dash. To combat that, I could just increase the high pass filter, but at that point it defeats the purpose of having 3.5-inch speakers on the dash. And that brings me to reason number 2 of why this is not worth it, is that you have to cut up a lot of stuff in your dash. If you guys want an easy bolt-in speaker to put there, I would go with something like this. They're component speakers with 2 and 3/4-inch speakers, and with those you could use an adapter to fit those speakers into the dash. If I were to pick between using 3.5-inch speakers and that kicker set, I'd probably go with the kicker set. But this setup that I have right now sounds pretty good, and I got the experience of making something work where it usually wouldn't work. Also with those kicker speakers, it comes with a crossover, so you would have the ability to use your 4-channel amp instead of going with a 6-channel amp that I may have to go with. Because as some of you guys know, I have a 4-channel digital signal processor amp by Audio Control. I hope this video gives you guys the chance to see the process in putting 3.5-inch speakers and helping you guys decide on what speakers you guys want to go with. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and leave a comment down below on what you guys think. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.